Hi and welcome to this drums tutorial with the Korg Wavestate. So I made a performance for all of you that contains drums, of course, and I used 4 layers. Let's just jump right into it, and this is layer 1. So as you can tell, there's some modulation. Maybe let's check out the modulation first. So if you want to add modulation, you simply go to what you want to modulate. So it can be a parameter. For example, I press the mod effects button here and it's a phaser. Then I go to wet dry. So we want to modulate the amount. And here it says dry, so by default it's dry, there's no effect applied. And then we press the mod button, the right arrow key, and now the message comes: press enter to modulate the current parameter. That's what we want to do. So then we press enter, and then we say which knob or mod wheel or whatever you want to use to modulate, and you just have to turn it. Now for instance, let's take the second one as well, the second knob. Well, actually it's the 6th knob if you look at it. You just press enter and then you see the intensity, and you can say wet, totally wet. Let's listen to this. Now let's go to our lane settings and let's look at the timing. Just hold shift, page minus, page plus, and here we see A1 to A16. So we have 16 steps for our timing lane and for our sample lane I'm only using 4 steps, and I show you why. If you look at the first sample, which is a kick drum, and really important is the fixed pitch is on. So if I press this key, this key, this key, you always hear the same pitch. Now let's continue sample number 2, which is the snare hip 2, trimmed minus 12 dB, because I want this to sound like a ghost snare sound. If we press enter and we press 2, we can just hear how it sounds. Now disable it again, press enter, press 2 again. And our third sample is our real snare sample. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, the ghost snare is fixed pitch off, and the actual snare is also fixed pitch off, so we can change the pitch. And our fourth sample is just the kick again with fixed pitch on, and also a little bit the volume is down a little bit. So okay, that's our samples, and now we go to the timing lane again. And as you can see, I used 16 steps. Now you might think, why did you use 16 steps and why didn't you use 16 different samples? Well, because I'm actually just using the same samples again, and this means if you look at the timing lane, I actually just used 16 steps to insert some arrests now and then. So I already know at step 2 is arrest, step 5 is arrest, and for example step 16 is arrest as well. And this means we are going to play for let's say from 1 to 8, it's gonna sound like kick, snare, kick, go snare, snare, kick, and it sounds like this. So this way we can use rests. So for example, the first time you don't hear the ghost snare on step number 2, and you don't hear the first kick drum on step number 5. Now let's change the loop to 16. So that's the whole loop. So we are using the timing lane to actually make our groove, our drum groove. Pitch isn't used. The shape lane is used, just 1 and 2, and I'm pretty sure 1 is just all on, so that means it doesn't do anything. You just hear the samples. And step number 2 is just to make it a little bit more shorter. Let's hear this one. Not that much difference, but if I turn the offset down a little bit, you can start hearing, you can hear that the samples are getting shorter. This can actually be around, let's hear all on again. So it's more subtle, and that means on beat is 1 and off beat is 2, so we get 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. So 1 is accentuated more than 2, which is nice and makes it sound more realistic. So that's something I really like. Now gate, I don't use gate, and the reason why I don't use gate is because well, it cuts off the samples, and I really like shape much more than gate for stuff like that. Let me show you how it would sound with gate. So it cuts down the samples really hard, and I don't like that. So that's why I don't use any gate here, so I can put it back, gate length. And step sequencer isn't used as well. So this is layer 1. So what do you need to keep in mind? We modulated the effects. So that's something you can apply to your drums to make it a little bit more interesting. And what else? Well, the fixed pitch is something you can actually experiment with as well. Now let's move on to layer number 2. Layer number 2 isn't really complicated, it's just a hi-hat groove. Timing lane is just 4 steps. Let me see, 2, 3, 4, just 8 notes all the time. So if you look at this loop, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, really simple. Sample lane, fixed pitch again. First sample is in hi-hat open. Let's hear it. That's our first sample. Second sample, trimmed down. And this sample is also a closed hi-hat, but it sounds a little bit more different than step number 2. Then step number 4 is the same as step number 2. Could actually trim it down just the same amount as step number 2, minus 12 dB. So that's that. Pitch, didn't use pitch. Shape lane, I think kind of the same as with layer A. So 2 steps, on beat, off beat. A1 is just all on, and A2 is locked down to make them sound a little bit more shorter. This is A2 only, and this is A1. So, gate isn't used, step sequencer isn't used. That's layer B. Now let's hear A and B together. Let's continue with layer C, and this is where I like it. What I want to say is I like how you can do random things with the wave state. So let me show you how I randomize this patch. Now, okay, first let's hear how it sounds. So what can we hear? We hear accentuated sounds, and that's because of the shape. As you can see, I used 2 steps as well for the shape. Oh yeah, and also keep in mind, shape controls volume must be on all of these layers. So shape 1 is all on, and shape 2 is locked down. Quite similar to A and B, but there is one big difference, and that's that we used probability of only 20 on the first step, and that means it accentuates not all the time, so it doesn't accentuate like pa 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 pa. It gets more random, because if I put this on 100, and I like it more random. So it means it uses A2 a lot more than A1, because the probability is only 20% for using A1. So if it plays 2, then there's an 80% chance it plays 2 again instead of 1. And random, of course. Now let's go to our timing lane, A1 to A5, and this is actually a little bit tricky because it is a 4x4 measure, and still I use A1 to A5, and I tell you why I did this. And by the way, the speed is double the amount, so twice the amount, double, twice, whatever. Step A1 is an 8th note, step A2 is a 16th note, A3 also is 16th note, and then we have A4 is an 8th note again, and A5 is an 8th note as well. And that's why I have 5 steps, because 2 and 3 are 16th notes, and 2 16th notes is equal to 1 8th note. So that means we have 1 8th note, 2 16th notes, 1 8th note, and 1 8th note. And that's actually 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Let's listen to this. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Actually it's 1 2 1 2 because I changed the speed to double the amount. But if I would put the speed to normal, it would be 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. As you can see, it's not playing 2 and 3 right now, because the probability of those steps is so if we look back at our timing lane, we can see 1 8th note, 1 16th note, 1 16th note, 1 8th note, 1 8th note, and 2 16th notes is the same as 1 8th note, so that actually means 1 8, 1 8, those two combined, 1 8 and 1 8, which is 4, 1 2 3 4, and it would sound like 1 tat 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 tat. You get the point, right? But the probability here is at 0 by default, but I'm actually using the mod wheel to control the probability of both steps 2 and 3, and this is where it gets really interesting. As you can hear right now, let's put speed to double the amount again. So if I turn up the mod wheel a bit, and the cool thing about this is when it skips 2 and 3, or just 2 or just 3, it adds the length of 2 to 1. So if 2 and 3 are skipped, 1 will be a 4th note instead of an 8th note. So the length of 1 will be doubled because you skip those. And that means our whole timing of our whole loop will always be the same. Because, for example, if it would skip 2 and 3, and it would play 1, 4, 5, and it will 8, it's all 8 notes, then our loop would be shorter. Then it would be 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, and now it's 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, sound-wise. And so we can always have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's really cool. Let me show you how this is on normal speed, so I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it doesn't matter if it plays 2 and 3, the timing will always be the same, and that's really cool. And that's only on the timing lane, if I'm not mistaken. So that it's not like with samples. With the sample lane, if it skips a sample, because stuff like this is just controlled in the timing lane. Now what else can I show you? Sample. I just used one sample for this, and it's just this sound. Did I use a shape? Yeah, I used the shape. So the shape is all on. I think I already explained this. All on, probability 20%, to accentuate it now and then. Yeah. Now let me show you how you can modulate these notes, those 16th notes, which are actually 32nd notes because of the double speed. That's A2 and A3. You just go to probability, you press the mod key and the right arrow, and you just press enter, and then you just turn the mod wheel, you press enter to continue, and then the intensity should just the intensity up. So now it's always playing those fast notes, and now it isn't. Now let's move on to layer D. And layer D is modulated by this knob. And as you can hear, layer D is some toms, a cowbell, and some other stuff. By the way, I used random order for this, so it uses the samples in a random order, and you can enable random order by pressing shift and just this button. And if it isn't random, it sounds like this. so I like it more random. Okay, so timing. 8th note, 8th note, 16th note, 16th note again. So as you can tell, quite similar to other stuff I did to make it sound a bit more randomized. Samples are 6 different samples. Let me see. Let me solo them. Shaker, tambourine. Oh yeah, that's something I should tell you. If you want to rehearse them soloed, you should put random order off. I think this is a bug. So let's look at our sample again. Tambourine, the lovely cowbell, toms, and this conga. Alright, let's put this back on. Pitch lane, didn't use a pitch lane. Shape, not show. No, I didn't, because I see shape controls volume is off, so I can put this to 1. Actually, it doesn't matter. Gate is also not used. Step sequencer is not used. Okay, something I forgot is of course the modulation of the volume now of layer D. Now if you go to perform and this next page, I put it by default on -20 dB, and since we're on that parameter right now, we can press mod right arrow again, enter, and we used this knob, speed performance knob. Press enter, and intensity plus 20 dB. Like that, because on default it's -20 dB, and if you turn it up, it's going to be plus 20 dB, so it's going to be about the right volume, which is kind of the same as the other layers. Oh, very important, before I forget this, you should also look at your performance setup. Let's look at voice assign, and this is really important. Voice assign should be on mono for percussion, legato on, priority last, and this basically means we can only press 1 key at a time. And you should do this for every layer, so B, C, and D. Okay, so that's about it. If we hear everything again,